Mama na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
Also heard people saying say, and that was your earlier question. So now say omubo kai we nyina inflation about 3 points.
Yeah.
3.
We were not made stories of some respected voices about finance, economy anyway. I've read one from Joe Jackson, for example, of Dayless Finance. He also makes the same point. Say, the cost of stability.
When have you heard Joe Jackson say anything against the NDC government or in favor of the MPP?
Joe Jackson.
Oh, I don't want to go too much into it. He's my friend. I don't want to go too much. When have you heard him? Would they pull one time that he has said something against the government? Once. You won't find one. Every time his opinion is on the side of the NDC and against the MPP. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it. But I want to come into this argument. Say,
yes.
A kana or mabono.
A cost for stability I enjoy.
Obi, no correct.
Okay.
O much them say kana o mabono. Nema mienu ne kofa kana bae. Se baako no mo fight inflation. Nti eno nko ne cost is 16.7 billion cedis. And the cost of open market operations.
Yeah.
And say second na omo support dollar no. Into cost near 9 billion cedis. First of all, Mikhail said, I know I interviews me in 2025.
Yes.
The first interview I know here was about market intervention at central bank near here. So per se okipu dollar na 10.
Yes.
And on me breaking them because they were pumping. Now formula no they pumping. You be in a cabebe fee. Midway through the year, and was in fact first year kind Omu deny it, president deny it, or share bishops who deny it, governor Nankasa deny it. It was when we kept insisting. Then the IMF looked into it and said, Charlie, Adena Moyeno, it's obvious. A market intervention. No, come say any intervention.
Intermediation.
Thank you. You see, who can be beer they will deny it? Intermediation, commercial banks in a central bank, they only intervene when the intermediation is not solving the problem. Say central bank nankasa say intermediation. No problem. What they are to need info from me. They catch me say umami ewu. Ne kana so wada. Say bosses.
Yes.
Until we kept saying say chale dey amoye ni intervention. Na dey amoye no ebe wie no dey kind of ebe fe. Oh aban papa ba mo pompe dollars and to me and save the city. No problem. No problem at all. At the time I na kasa ne catch you say loss are na fear say ba because of the structure no mo use no. As exposed by the IMF when they went into it, it was about 2.5 billion cedis. That's about $214 million at the time. Okay, but the Bank of Ghana accounts by Medicare. Why signature? And we say Dr. Siama. Why signature? Why? Them honey ni na.
Sure.
Any case say mumma yensi abotre yensi nkonwa ni yenye investigation. Ni yenhwe baby a problem ni fiba so that we can correct it. Mekra me sign the motion. LED minority the motion called Parliament. Obekaya. What did the majority do to that motion?
It was thrown out.
They threw away the motion. Say Bibianco Bonnie, they don't want to see anything. They've made up their mind. They don't want to see the facts. Dollar bafom, that's the important thing. And we told them, say, they are moving at the can beba. Now we are making sure why a card everybody should be concerned about it. At the time, Catcher and saying out, nothing important. In fact, 2 days before Bank of Ghana Bebano, Gold Board by announcement, so more make you profit 900 million. Bank of Ghana buyer or say. That transaction now on the gold board here, no. On Waboka 9 billion cedis.
Ghana cedis.
But at the time, you raise issue, no, 2.5. Senka yes in Kunyat now, Hoshe, correct here, and came 9 billion. But who can be beer? They will deny it, they will insult you, and now say, me, say, or moment, and about quite statement say, yeah, ignorant. No problem. And a kana 2.5 yanshe no say 9 billion. Now bakusu will make you profit 900 million. Bakusu will make you loss 9 billion. Netting off na the value of the gold transactions no. Fenotun chain. Before they assumed power, that's our gold purchase program no. Yemohuka. I've told you this on authority. Meaning say uchroko yemomu ye forget is adien no.
Since inception.
Forget is adien. Eda me de 2024 account brew. There was nowhere in that account that it was stated there was a loss. And that governor no call public accounts committee omu bisa and say who say there's a loss ye kura account no show us or say just okọ bank no there was no loss. They have published accounts under the signature of the governor and the auditors in which there are no losses. Now for politicization and political equation, they want to claim there was a loss in the past.
But you are saying the central bank in response to an RTI request can peddle falsehood?
I believe that it was untrue. Because it is not in the audited accounts. Do you know what audited accounts mean?
Sure.
Do you know the implication when auditors and directors sign an account? Said this is a true and fair view of what has happened. Now, what signing accounts in which there are no losses? Now we are politics into one answer RTI letter. I said that letter is of no consequence. Respectfully, it's of no consequence in comparison with the audited accounts which you gazette and lay before Parliament. The audited accounts that you gazetted and laid before Parliament didn't speak of any losses. Now, loss number is a much change structure. No? So now everybody has to go to the gold board. The gold board has to go to another entity. Until by the time I did you beton bedu Bank of Ghana no more boka. And on and more admit say more boka 9 billion Ghana, but you unim 9 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Unim sika ekoji wo IMF
3 billion, but no dollars. So we 9 billion we
cedis, yes. Now begin to wrap your mind around it. Begin to wrap your mind around it. 9 billion Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, at the time you started, it was just about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. And this will be the catcher, so it was the cost of stability. And your cost of stability, the cost of the policy decision they took to change the structure. That's why they are losing that money. They didn't need to lose that money. Remember another one. Almost say sterilization cost near 16.7 because they had to take a lot of money.
Yes.
That is the most egregious one. Then I know unya time kakra maminko through. So your Bank of Ghana account now total amount of money they sterilized from the economy was about 93 billion. Mamin trim. So they say Bank of Ghana soon say sika wo krom dodo. Sika wo nkofo ho a to turn yema by heart. Enti ade no se nkofo mi ni ko gina ho na se ne bo kra ye 1 cedi a we se o mema 1.2 tubo se ne bo okosoro any fan inflation. Enti no ye ntwi sika mfi krom. Yi sika ne fi krom ne sika ni ho a nipa na oton ade ne kra na edu baabi obeka se why den what so tight monetary policy and the elements need to include sterilization as a way by which on the supply side and I say on the demand side rather we use caffeine so they don't have money to demand. Okay, first of all Abanu deny said they were not doing sterilization. Yen ye be catch them say o must sterilize as at that time be 60 billion. Ye kan enkofo bi na o mu didi atami. They were arguing said there's nothing like sterilization. Now yen tiase. Kokan Bank of Ghana account now they've admitted say end of year sterilization balance on about 93 billion. Now my mincha there. So person we skefi kroma nye de bia na wo se utua ho ka. Banks no be bia a friend no cash reserve ratio. Cash reserve ratio no. So who do sika koto banka? Emra ne kire say wo se bank no de sika no ntichemu bi ebeto Bank of Ghana as part of the reserve ratio. Yes. Bank of Ghana untia 1 cedi wo ho. The reserve ratio no fa say about 10%. Na say banks nyina mo mobilize deposit or some of the 10% ba. Na come on 90%. Intel na mo de be the friend credit creation. Mo de be besia because a real essence of intermediation. And it's a mumunya excess na more intermediate money you hear be mo de money loan to the private sector. Yes. But who steady about say banks ne be bre wo ho a o mobilize deposit na. They don't give private sector credit. Omo train a bank treasury bill and omo government treasury bill. Then they make a spread on it. Omo train a Bank of Ghana bills bar no makoto. So in essence, the government ends up buying the money from the banks and paying for it.
Yes.
So there was a policy that was introduced known as the dynamic cash reserve ratio. No, you compare.
When was that introduced? Under Moana.
Okay. You compare deposits to private sector credit portfolio. Tisikana OG no yet 10% if you 90% neka the more in the private sector. If we find out say you are not giving it to the private sector but you are lending it back to government, which is increasing the cost of government borrowing. What then we do is that we have a dynamic way of increasing your reserve ratio. So then your reserve ratio is no longer 10%. TBSO from a to hand more 15%. What by this level one 20? What by there? The Bank of Ghana be more perhaps as a canina untia
BBA also.
February 2026, and our governor announces they were going to review it. Where am I joining line?
Yeah.
We are committed to reviewing the cash reserve ratio. Abra, omu take you over banks near you know you reset aba. You're a Mahama saying reset BBA, so they were going to review it. There was a second component of it. I don't know. So foreign exchange. Yenje foreign exchange under the reserve ratio. Yenje the CD equivalent. To the instance, so one say it denies you much CD which you can use to come and buy government paper and make money on it. Into Ukra Forex, no, it also increases Forex availability for banks to do intermediation. There's a banks in the intermediation. No. And no some buy no. Say Debbie. Or my reversing. No. So the effect is that there's a lot of money with the banks. Then now when they realize that there's excess liquidity, they say they are going to mop it up at a rate. So now they are paying
to mop up. No.
And only 16 billion now.
When the alternative is without paying anything through this policy,
so you have reversed policies. This costs 9 billion, 16 billion. No, next thing in Quebec, say bank, central bank be out fight inflation. Also boka. If that is the logic, central bank be out fight inflation. Also boka. But that's not true. Central banks fight inflation without paying this money. Central banks build gold reserves. We built gold reserves without making a nanipa no the gold reserves nifi 8 tons. Eba 31 tons. That is an addition of 22 tons no one moka. Wa would this 7 tons beka 31 no money 38 no. Wo 7 tons no pen also aboka 9 billion. Nipa no the inflation fee 54%. Eba 23%. That is a difference of 31 percentage points no. When to 16 billion. Wa would defeat 23. Eba at the time, because we hear the close off of this account at the time 5.4%. 23 to 5. Who knows who about 16 billion? What sort of math is this? But you don't have an opportunity to interrogate it because some of the politics need kind. That's why they went through that exercise to come and do the propaganda. Those they say, "Why a bank for Nangasa a din techero?" And Omejama NDC communicators. And Omo announce, "Who can high? No maso and who can high? No medi watem can high? No my you say." And a bank Nankasa. Governor Siamabai say his number one priority is to reverse the negative equity of the bank.
Yes.
In fact, that is when in speech
and make sure say losses will not be repeated.
Or buy a negative equity near 58 and they could do 93. That is an addition of 33. 33 in Kanameka to so ton gold, you gold 9.6 and son of me achieve 33. Yes, I have 44. So there's a problem. I was see jai politics no. Now you confront a problem because this is the lender of last resort. This is your central bank and my central bank. Now, we are there. The central bank has to be recapitalized. Recapitalized by nothing less than 93 billion because Utia 93 billion now it brings them to where? Zero. Nasa 93 no. Unimnipa Obitia.
Menewo.
Osebonsu Philip. Omahine Kwabna Sante. Dominic Kisi Kweju Oppong Nkrumah ye cleaners ni ye drivers are omo wa ha sei maami yo ton indomie o junction Bishop obetuye bi watiefo ayetie mi no sa 93 billion no obia betuye bi enti obitifie onya adwuma yen ye ekun se method na ban ni use no ebewie no wo ewu mu adwuma no nya bi ebewie no obeboka na wasan ba betua sa aka ni bi ka sa sika no o ma yemfem bi enterprise fund nanka wo wonye bia ya adwuma wo se da bi na dollar na gina 10 nti yenye din ka sen kodu
Kojo, the other point has been say said your word me you know, the first time you who said Bank of Ghana aboka was in 2022 time at 60 billion.
That is true.
You know. If someone argue say that whole any the beginning of the problems of the Bank of Ghana, then now become.
First of all, unlike 2022, no, yen try say the kabia tetebebia. In 2020, I mean who say you go for some neutrals near there will be a choice. So the transparency of the central bank should be commended. You want some more, they've been transparent. Transparency of what? The 15 billion, or the hidden 19 billion, or the hidden 44. This is not transparency. Transparency was when the central bank went through the process, published its accounts, and came to tell you, say, Yaboka 60 billion. First, unlike what they are doing now, time nobody tried to hide it. Number two, we clearly explained, say, 60 billion now, Omo Bokano.
Yes.
Because Bank of Ghana had to pay 48 billion to reduce the country's debt under the domestic debt exchange program. Omuti have 42 billion every year, no. No ma boka 60 billion. Ode omada yika no ma boka 60 billion. Why did they have to pay 48 billion in 2022? Because in 2020, so obekaya yedum pempen so bia taxes cry na osen kofutu and you say you suspended tax payments. You relax the timetable no for tax payment. Inti aban revenue emba. You say teacher for enkwajuma but ibeti omka. We mu enkwajuma but ibeti omka. Ye mom nkania, ye mom nsuo because atorencha mato yen. Inti ye bo besia ene de hwe economy no. Sa besia na ye bo in the Bank of Ghana to mu 48 billion. Ene mo bo ka 60 billion. But the interesting is so bo ka 60 billion ni wie ye no. In the years after that no, na oweke se otete no so restore bank no to where it has to be. Into bon say in the following year, nika boy na 10 billion.
That's in 2023.
In 2023, na 10 billion. Omoko recast here no say 13. No problem. Materiality concept in accounting. Into from 60 no or te so ba 10. In 2024 no, according to NDC4 mobile year accounting in 2025 no, Omsi bank ne can also take by 9.4. Me make my was a bank ne make profit. What did I kind? The bank made profit, but I'm change the accounting policy no to remove part of it from the operating account and move it into other comprehensive income. Into your operating account, na headline ne pen until 9.4 loss. I won't even argue about that. But the point is that no matter take loss also from 60 to 13 to 9. In fact, so we net equity position now. Now net equity position I started back to positive. Then all of a sudden, a new government comes in, mostly reset, more cancel policies nibi. And now what you are doing is now taking us to a 44 billion loss, which you've covered up by selling 9.6 billion gold to reduce it to 35 loss. Into a day and now net equity now started banning back to 0.
Yeah.
So say net equity na tiako 93. And a bank na deka 93. Get and I say bank na deka 93. So anybody who tries to make that argument, say yeni boka first, is missing the trajectory of issues. But the yempo yemfa say yeni boka more than this. And you crampo you try say ye de tete, just like what you have tried to do. Nkebeka say nothing na Ghana for to abeti. So you are supposed to do what? Better. You cannot campaign against an administration with this record, promise to do better, and then you come and do worse. Yeah, can't also say crown or boka first. That is unacceptable. It's like you wanted to scam the people, but can't be beer to almost. I dare say a crime scene. Governor, no, inti me pacho. If 13 billion cedis loss is a crime scene for the governor to, in fact, at that time, what they knew was 10 billion. After recasting about 13, 10 billion loss is a crime scene. The governor must resign in 21 days. By the NDC standard, what should they be saying about my good friend governor?
But the governor must resign was on the 60 billion.
No.
But we had a demonstration on the 60 billion.
No, they did a demonstration in 2024.
Okay.
On the 2023 accounts.
Okay.
Mostly near policy insolvency. HRS governor no any penny for decisions or may take a bad. Momo the policy insolvency have been a makoto good at their Johnson. I said they are tied now the pin, safety pin, assume. Till Momo the by your own standard, then you can. So you see the politicization Obi doesn't help. Media they are worried about and said, put all the politics aside and look at the numbers. We have a problem. Sa 93 MPP before we are all going to pay for it. So if there are decisions that are being taken now, at the bank number in jeopardy, don't still keep standing by it and defending it for political capital when we are all going into peril. Ntimakacho said Wednesday,
yes,
you better about with recommendations on how very, very urgently this lender of last resort must be saved. If not, and then the policy insolvency no man kataso, what if fortunately we become actually insolvent?
How about
it calls for sober reflection?
Yes, the arguments gold na omoton ye are clearly material workana. It was a bad decision from your perspective. But they tell you, sir, a work in progress. They are still building reserves, you know? And that's how comes see our crowd here. Almost they want to build to the level, see a 15-month import cover as a country. And the gun wrap, a babetu name our parliament, you know? And it's not as if, sir, ya tongue be any at all. They are still building.
Time of Moton gold, no, not your reserves. How many months?
Almost 5?
5 months.
Yes.
Until 5 months of import cover. Also, person build you do 15. Why would you sell half of what you have and come down only to start afresh? Because also the person will build it reserves to 15 months, but in the gold 40% and a cash 60%. Now gold no does in 2% diversify back cash. What you do is that you build more cash reserves.
Yes.
So you don't sell your gold, you keep the gold. And then you build more cash reserves to overtake the gold reserves.
But you can also sell part of the gold to build your cash reserve.
You don't need to, because it takes a lot more difficulty to get the gold than to get cash reserves. Intino, gold. Look at how we struggled to build gold reserves from 8 tons to 31 tons. When Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia came up with this domestic gold purchase program, a lot of people didn't even understand it. There were parts of the program that we tried that were temporary,
yes,
that didn't work out. The gold for oil, it had its challenges. It had to be cancelled at a point. But that program was brilliant. And on the name buyer, mutumeye intervention in the market, and most of changing it into intermediation. Mukwani central banker, mu intervene or marketer, you too need to say commercial bank. So now the central bank is operating as a commercial bank. You fair no to change. It is I will say gold near 40% of reserves. Now 60% your cash. But total number of 5 months. We person build it up to 15 months. Yes. Simultaneous equation. You grow the cash reserves.
How do you grow it?
You grow the cash reserves by using the door gold. The door gold near bullion.
Yeah.
And the door.
Dory bass, yes.
Until you grow through the door and then you sell the door for forex. That's the gold for forex program.
Yes.
To grow the cash reserves.
But they are doing that along.
So why do you sell the gold first? And I make catch say it doesn't make sense. The only reason for which they sold that gold between October and December, and I'm actually on page 7, because they needed to get policy solvency. Into banking is on technically 2025 policy insolvent. That was what happened. That's the only reason for which they sold it, and now they are going to buy it back at a higher price. If not, they themselves know. They themselves know. Say what they needed to do was to grow the cash part of it, not to sell the gold to add to the cash, to change the percentage, which is still 5 months, and then now start to build the gold again to 15 months. How does that make sense to you?
Well, Sir Obi, good afternoon. In the same vein, i.e. on Kojo's comment about Joe Jackson, one could easily ask, when have you heard Kojo say anything in favor of the NDC?
Can I give him an answer?
When the
finance minister introduced the your friend said commencement authorization, may have commended him publicly for it. I can give him examples. Can he give me an example?
Or say in 2015, I had a Facebook chat with Kojo where I expressed my excitement at him joining politics and admonished him to remain technocratic and shun politics as usual. My mention nipa crowd the way by that. Okay, Jibril Agbesi Hamenu. Now, say Obi join politics. How would he shun politics? Join politics and shun politics. How is that going to be possible? But Hamenu Yadase, Papa. We say Obi. What the asset management was the asset management done by BoG? Okay, what the asset management done by BoG does in the balance sheet is basically changing the asset class of that particular asset on the face of the balance sheet. It does not affect their profit and loss. So why should they include the reclassification in their P&L? It is more or less like a revaluation which should be reflected in your OCI. The bottom line figure, which is the loss/profit, is the actual figure that is sent to the retained earnings, in this case the equity. So how do you report a loss of 15 billion whilst you transfer 35 billion Ghana cedis to your retained earnings in the balance sheet? If this is not magical accounting, then what will it be?
French Nibeka say exactement. Watch me sort the accounting now. So you cannot adjust your balance sheet by 35 billion, by negative 35 billion. Yet pretend that the loss was 15. And I'm actually saying 19, normally I cut other comprehensive income. So you have to add it to it. You see the total, that's the 35 billion, 34.9, that is 35. Yes. That is what you went to adjust on the balance sheet of the central bank. That's the truth.
Se utiena o adwintra 0548 443 523 0548 443 523. Ubetimi de messages no afaso abrain na yajemre akan ama 0548 443 523 na yanyemre enkan o messages ni na emfa ema mene kojo Oppong Nkrumah na ewo studio 42 minutes after 4. I'll pause for this short break. Mekan mo messages na akanafe.
I will show you what else that money could have been used for, because
money being
so Sika Bank of Ghana Tiama commercial banks in 2025.
Yes.
For sterilization. You can't want some no. Now they compare to the profits that the commercial banks made.
Yes.
So I'm a copy of the accounts now.
Okay.
Edana NDC party by a press conference, someone announce Bank of Ghana results.
Yes.
Omo can send you a press conference na say almost say account no omo edebe to abonten encouraging because it was compiled in accordance with international financial reporting standards.
Yes.
Account na you download the free internet no so no from the Bank of Ghana website. 136 pages.
Yes.
Okay, more there are two places in which the auditors and the directors say that the omo can no correct. The auditors, KPMG, only the directors of the bank, almost say the NDC party ne can no correct. Me pacho we page 10, where the independent auditors give their opinion. My highlighting and maybe green mo. Pacho can't share with you for.
But why is this necessary relative to question I'm able to say?
Maybe answer because a change in accounting policy.
Okay.
And now the profit that the Bank of Ghana made in 2024, omutumidite ka say loss. By no cry no yes say ye no mo nkohu ntokwa. Omo accounting policy for na edo dia ban eno na start do omunya no. Wo de kan ho no mame.
In the way emphasis on matter. Emphasis of matter, basis of account.
Yes.
Okay, emphasis of matter, basis of accounting.
Yes.
And to almost say we draw attention to note 2A to the consolidated and separate financial statement, which describe the basis of accounting.
The basis of the accounting.
Yes, of accounting.
Okay.
Yes. The consolidated and separate financial statement are prepared in accordance with the group's own accounting policies to satisfy the financial information requirement per the Bank of Ghana Act 2002 Act 612 as amended by the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act 2016 Act 918, the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act 2025 Act 1158, and the Public Financial Management Act 2016 Act 921.
Almost say why accounting standards now.
Yeah, BoG the
good. Yes. No, almost say use the bank's own group
yes
accounting standards.
Yes.
Use in fact use IFRS.
Sure.
Page 4. Masan highlighted baby in green. That is where the directors of the bank give their bona fides to support the account.
However, the Bank of Ghana Act takes precedence over IFRS accounting standards in the areas noted above, and as a result, the recognition and measurement criteria as set out in IFRS accounting standards as adopted by ICAG have not been applied in these circumstances. The resulting significant departures from IFRS accounting standards as adopted by ICAG are summarized below. So meaning say essentially, no, omono eye omadwin say IFRS accounting standard and no use for way.
And the reason is that how you recognize some elements also be send message say nanka wo asset there and asset if you swap from one asset class to another a balance sheet as you don't come into your operating income statements and it is principally because as part of reset no change accounting policy now at the central bank. First, now central bank use IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, which is also being adopted by the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana.
Yes.
In fact, so we have to say banks now Ghana, they are required to use IFRS. SOEs are required to use IFRS. And the Bank of Ghana and Ankasa, to ensure uniformity, they moved to IFRS. When this government came, as part of reset, so much changes, so they no longer use the International Financial Reporting Standards. Use MOM standards. Because of that, and to say valuation gains. Yifi operating account nimu. Normally akwa share other comprehensive income nimu. Enti what you realize, me 2024 account ni say. What you realize is in the 2024 account, because Omuyi gains, as in the valuation gains, free operating account. The operating account was short of the profit from revaluation. They can bank from a deficit of 9 billion, they moved to a positive of 4 billion. But Omuyi, if you want to share. Your friend is saying other comprehensive income. And on report 9.4 now as the headline loss. And in Komoko balance sheet, I was saying balance sheet sign Konechi. Because if it's a loss of 9.4, I was saying balance sheet sign Konechi. Balance sheet ne baneni. Because the net effect, ukatu ni boom, send away 15.6 and 19, ukabomo 34 no. But uka negative 9 no plus I think it was about 12 or so. I have to check it. I don't have it here. Ukamboma a positive 4 into the balance sheet. That is the net equity position improved by about 4 billion. In fact, and no press conference me show bar graphs no said that was the recovery that was coming. Say net equity position it was recovering. But because of the change in accounting policy, and I can tell you on authority, I know the 2 directors of the central bank who caused this policy to be changed. 2 minimum no more cause this policy to be changed.
Directors of the central bank.
Yes, because no money say so muja policy now. Profit will be recognized in 2024. Like I say, can about 2022 no, we managed to turn the bank around before we left. So they changed the policy. Said they've changed the auditors as well.
So we KPMG.
But these were not the original auditors. They've changed the auditors as well. I'm not impugning any motive on it. I can't do that. I'm a professional. I won't do that. But I'm telling you, so why several changes. Sir, accounting policy no change from IFRS. No?
Yes.
Saying you use old accounting policy now, you would have recognized the profit in 2024. But they changed it so that they could tell the story that there was still a loss of 9.4. Even though they claimed there was a loss of 9.4, when they went to the balance sheet, the net equity had a positive turnaround because the net effect was positive. But so we see edua emu enko kwaku ebabeto into the same accounting policy no and then neama se woka se why 15 why bekwa ku na 19 wa fi woka bomu a negative 34 obi ntan obi Obin tan obi. But bank na ye nyina yesika korabia bad time. I was say ye bon ban. Time now say eduambum bokoko no. Afi de utinis you. Afi de utinis you. Yeah, they ask a message about the top and say there's a problem. You enjoy politics, no. Now you confront it. Time you can't say any investigation. My 2.5. You can't stop over there. No. They say I do 9. And only said they have not changed the structure of the gold purchase program. They haven't changed it.
Now the only change we are told is that Bank of Ghana is no longer involved.
But they have not changed the structure.
Money.
They have not changed the structure. And Tikano before for na eba be boss akano. Because Bank of Ghana say to me most akani bill. I can show you where this akane kwa share next time. Say kanoma year if you gold board books mudi abeshe Bank of Ghana books but only 9 billion.
Yes.
Me kan ye di atamusa. And then abe. A normal buyer is there some big say let's change the structure. No, say there's nothing wrong with the structure. But no one say Bank of Ghana enye bill. Into one be. The kana ko share before fro. I know an authority where they have moved it to. 2026 we say a one person they can ko share. Under the gun wrap no gold now more better on a door so crossing they did 9 billion by you. But omo a can if Bank of Ghana they ko share baby fufro. Ye nim baby fufro they ko share. In our recommendations, ye better say honemwa. The solution is to go back to the old structure. Cost of sterilization, ye can say you can get this money without paying these amounts. Don't do this. Maye, Ubon say Wednesday, the alternative proposals BEBAP seeking to correct it. Wednesday, there's something we have to say about the 93 billion. Ekana abefino.
Yes.
Because they say no makacho say
total equity.
The total net equity
minus we no.
You 93 billion no crash say
zero.
Zero. So you have to pay more than 93 billion. And no your view on how it should be done. And also you the nti ye entire bi ye nkase bonemra. But
why do we have to pay? Because time ye bought 60 billion no. At the time ye
net equity about 55 billion. Yeah.
So no, the BoG was not capitalized by government.
There was supposed to be a program to recapitalize.
Okay.
And that program was rolled out. So say recapitalization. Recapitalization, you need to mobilize Sika.
Yes.
And now recapitalization is taxpayers' money. What you say? I'm sure you are privy to all the stories about your tax measures and for BoG. Say no, I don't want to go into that one. Whatever it is now, we have to recapitalize. You say I do 93, we have to recapitalize. So we have to raise that revenue to recapitalize. So revenue because who bet you be me met you being in a bit. Say I'm confronting situation now and recapitalizing and now. Next year, do you know what could happen to the bank? And even this year, 2026. Until we say the politics not to change. Ni jai say accounts na come NDC party no more. No. Let's get serious on a professional level and deal with it and try to fix it.
Could you Oppong Nkrumah and your training? Can I say Shena ye day common SC? It's already 7 minutes after 5. Panel members now so I crowd was you call into your discussion segment. More the messages by to me and Kaino Monfa and Chain. We say Obi listening to Honorable KON from the boardroom of Nkrumah and Associates. Kojo is very intelligent, excellent analysis. Kwesi Bochi Junior Esquire and on the way abraying. Kwesi Yadase Papa Kojo Yadase so
say Asembana say yeah my advisor. You see, I keep making this point. Yet now been for 8 years. We got some things right, we got some things wrong. You know some of the things are say ye ni year be Ghana ni na abain ye strom say ye kasa omuntie. It will save all of us a lot of headache. And some I account about gold, and some I account about sterilization. Komuti Kenya say 93 billion. Many we babe chetu.
Ana eduma, but that weekend did them say one or two posts on social media of, but you know they be America say electrical sector now you running localized problems. Dia which me akase emba yintumi nya da ekro ni nyina be kase kania endu ya na inua no ne omunsam keka no mkeka in opposition no na right now is coming back to bite them na nka wo hwe system a running in Ghana and certain outages shouldn't be a problem, and I say it shouldn't be politicized. And some could see Oshe Jumadina engineers here, Akosombo.
Yes.
The initial part, no, nanka politics be a MD no, I cast on step aside the investigation. People even went echo media kokase MPP for na kwashiho, which is very unfortunate. I don't see say be able to me in bit me I say MPP ni be to me and I say amanyo semunti japade etesano obi akoshino. Engineers na idea they have been able to bypass control room no and they current electricity no directly to the control room in Tema. So right now they are doing the controls from Tema to supply the nation. And there are still pockets of problem across the country. I don't think say we are out of the woods yet, but it's better now.
But you also believe it when the minister says the challenges was exacerbated by Ijane Towo Akosombono.
Yes.
And once we deal with that, Nyoma beye stable relatively. The for the want of a better expression, the fear mongering and because doom so asaya banner, it was just down to Akosombo.
Yeah, na tembiano bibit sina abisia bibi kwan.
Okay.
Na ekroni nyina no. I think say na edru pempen so bia na nipa pi kankani adunduma sem.
Sure.
Social media, various media reportage, Kumasi, even Ashanti region, Emma Ashanti regional NDC chairman, Kokase, ECG for managers been a sabotage. The Monday before that, ECG MD call Kumasi, Ekuyi, and Rantim, you know, be free ho. Emma me crab me grantee interview say, na Ranti amuko yi womu, some you am kanya dum no enjoy. And you know, those things na koso, was Santimemu and other parts of the country. And the Ibiso Muno, which is the outage, from the fire, so we Akosombo and Oppong free more. It's 1,200 megawatts. It's huge.
Yes. Because
Akosombo nyajuma Oppong to me nyajuma. And I think that 4 or 5 days na ni Akosombo ni Oppong. I think it was a national disaster. Until now it's over no. The real problems are existing. ECG for say overloading of transformers. Media they be me come say so we can say more and you know the chine bebre obi ma me free if you mumbai no so free former ba no nsian bo a ye be hwere be so buchia ye mama bosumi mienso ye mama bosumi nsian it can't be forever and me maka and I'm the sector we know and me tiasie sin nipa bebre me de no Nkrumah me do a sector we at least from 2012 14 years me din komo we on a daily basis. I just have sat in meetings. Our weather has a lot to do. Now no there's a lot. Is the weather is hot. And you see June July August weather never conform. We don't use as much air conditioning as much until no ebema the reliever Ghana for you here no na maintenance we need Juma bi wo hwa sector nim no o maye. After that, no, na ye behwe. Some say busumi miensa, busumi nsia. Ye behwe say busumi miensa de busumi nsia is be October beba. Se kan ya na dumu. Se etia, ye nko ba bia aja otwetwe apon wo he obema ye nkwane ahoden de. Ye betena ade ho nkomo.
That's fine. Pedro, minim what you think, baby. Our reporter when you're from Seshiyo so near the Nyoma is stable kakra in the last 3 days.
Yeah, very stable. Like I said last week, na a topic because my culture say a banyina kania ho asem no betumi de ayama yosem na so okọ from party anyama yosem because he doom lighter ye nsheda mbisa say efie A or B wan mo na eto and na light no ye de bibia in fact o ye businessman
sure
kania ya na de be your business artisanal people and one of your business even so or public service kaniano in a way essence boy because who could do a dumna kani wa ko yede obi banner or so render service to serve for instance minerals commissioner ye facilitation for every form of mineral right via for the minister to approve no na kani ho genset in so nya adwuma na say bibia nkoso no nti ya de a affect every facet of life.
Okay.
But so far so good. Na komona na ekoso nyina no na kogina say impo before say na to renchem ne besi wakosombo no na ye were pockets of some lightouts ne yibia na ekoso a ECG ene energy ministry paying for me at ase maka cho say atem no say wo need light na omo hwe so no omo ni wo di nkomo na omo bo wa no ba say oh montwen ochena ibenya light amegidi say eno ye since wo ntehwe wo hwa na be don hwe be adunu ni edumu kania untumi you cannot plan your life the way you aduma wo ECG a wonni mu but enene de omo be ka kire ye say wo hwe the power sector na your generation, transmission and distribution. Until Oshe Babia ye investment ekoye emrebi etwamu enokra pono enesti ye ni reserves ekogina generation no nti free hydro no ye say enya sadia ye nkotema na ye kotema no so ye hwe say afoforo betumi abeka ho nti independent power producers eba mu ama ye bia kama aban dada no aban ye wosu ni even aban ye buy ansa na bandada ba ni na kodu baby say ye generative ya say o say transmit na fe de to me a supply kwa fiefie mu baby wo ho a ye population na akosoro akodu baby a afi de omo ete ho no kakra na overload aba distribution transformer ne so net triple tisade a yenhwe na yenfa program bi mra ebetimi aboa na titiri enye supply transformers no distribution wala kesi no na yenche be 3000 wo memu senye be ya baby a population e kosoro na enu nti kakra na omo machines no e triple no ebetimi aye I think say eno so e koso na de ba ko a eye very significant nkomo a e koso ya moka bi mo se Ghana engineers enye se bia me engineer me electrical engineer but Ghana one of the best engineers we have electrical engineers oko grid co oko VRA oko ECG aturenche mi esi kosiko ko bi enyo ye engineers ya eno modo madwen e ka bon ho esiesie ana ye nyasa yi nti o se bo mo abaso na ye bo management a ewo both Greco akosombo VRA efo nyina abaso any ministry modern ministry ni so a ensure san but measures no mo dia to ekwan mu no me hu ni say temporary the entire temporary ni say control room eshe na say ye bypass ya what it means ni say there's a main line so we need to go there ya ma ye ni nko na afi de ya nkoje ni nyina nkogu bypass ni so ne no so koje ne ho a ni asan so yes I will say ma ye ni ko which I know say the honorable minister and his team will do that and are doing that ti obi kania ni do obi ape na CCIA say ni de emfa ho ni party awo emfa ho ni asori awoko emfa ho ni nton awobo gina so a eboye nyina bompa ye say the omayi ombekoso ayi ni and there is so much investment in the energy sector under this regime and we are hopeful say e be gina so ma ye nyina ye nyankania no
very well
me ya onza ka the si kasa ye anka obo opposition na anka kasa omo kasa sa onza anka find something it's no nyo bi wo ho me no I think say amanyosem no both parties should lead NDC in power ohwe omo kasa mu a sana nko omo opposition no omo kasa ya anke nei ankasem ye ni ho
opposition they will pay about
that be the desperation no there no any problem no afi no aka no ran wo so wonti ase afi wo begina ban mu a na ye de ahye won sase e de ekoye mienhwe na akofa ensem bebraba eno ne de to tell make at ase because me nua kasa kama the na kania de obi ahia I say yes nyina yinim kania so obi ahia na de bi no obi aka na kania dum da kokra haram na mampanyiti na so na say ensem bebre etino me de say but footwear ye de ma yenua no mo amanyo say mama yenjai unnecessary politics will not help this country.
Yeah, it's true. I was going to ask her with your experience and knowledge in the sector no the last analysis I may showed say now we've even eaten into a reserve margin as a country. And even now that Akosombo is back on stream full, you know, say any of the other plants say Kim, we may be in deep trouble. It is if you have to advise the minister, baby, I was say in the focus areas to see a power on your thing.
On say Nkrumah we no Nkrumah yenum be from the civil society side no. Ya advise even did the presentation to parliament. Minya on say the bia meka say ebia wedding fee 9. Now maami akodwom no akoto trousers for 6-year-old amount. Na yo hojo.
Yeah.
But in undi 7 no na yo boske. Ubi nyina shim.
Sure.
Now maami akoto 10-year-old for amount. No wa share ayo boske ba ubi nyina shim. As a nation, the bia yini every year estimated media me basic crime about 8 to 10% growth a year.
Yes. Energy Commission said 12%.
Well, and that calculation, it becomes a problem because as the capacity grows, we calculate 12% of the growth now, it becomes a bit too much. Yeah. And they are 12,000, 4,000. 10% to cry off.
That's 400 megawatts.
Exactly, growth a year is a bit too much. We make kind of 250 megawatts.
Okay.
Minimum we grow about 250 megawatts every year. Say okay, SS capacity in Nkrumah need in 2017. You design common in 2017. Because in 2017, that was about 2,000 megawatts of power. Now you're contracting, take or pay. You so but as of 2019, NASA SS capacity in because then we had now gone into 18 to 20% reserve margin now. As a nation, you need policy for reserve margin because on say SS capacity on its own is not a problem.
Sure.
The only time it becomes a problem is that there is no revenue stream to pay for it. As a nation, I will say some policy now, revenue stream one. Was say okay at every point in time, or see 20% of our capacity as reserve margin, and this is how we we'll pay for it. Say the bare 2 cities